Hey everyone, it's FLAK Fire. Battlefield 2042's beta is finally here, and its reception is a little bit mixed. I'm still having a great time with it, but it is a beta, right? There is some stuff that is obviously still a work in progress. I'm sure DICE will be announcing some changes following the test, but there's a key aspect of Battlefield 2042's gameplay that is a huge problem, and that is distinguishing between enemy and friendly players. That's what we're talking about today. So, most of you are probably aware that Battlefield 2042 is basically a big proxy war with the US and Russia using groups of armed no-paths, so the non-patrioted refugees from failed states, to fight their battles. It gives them plausible deniability with the goal of keeping things from escalating to all-out war. Now, Battlefield 2042 is giving players the freedom to choose between 10 specialists at launch. Each looks unique and each has their own gadgets and abilities. Having had some time with them in Battlefield 2042's beta, I will say I actually like them. We need the visual distinction to help predict enemy behavior and understand exactly what they're capable of. What's mind-bending about all this, though, is the fact that the specialists, regardless of team, look exactly the same. And I don't mean they look similar, I mean they look exactly the same. The only difference between, say, the specialist Maria Falk on the Russian team and the US team is how she appears according to the UI, or user interface. It can be incredibly confusing to determine friend from foe in Battlefield 2042 for this reason. And it wasn't always like this, right? Let's look at Battlefield 1's character designs. You had a unique uniform for each team, and each class had a unique appearance. And this was in addition to the information from the UI. In Battlefield 1, if you see an enemy for a split second, right, there's a chance you can discern not only what team they're on, but their class, their abilities, and indeed the type of weapons that they might be carrying. All of these factors can influence how you handle fighting that enemy. In Battlefield 2042, the same split second tells you remarkably less information. While you might be able to figure out, what the specialist is, you rely entirely on the UI to determine whether or not that character is an enemy soldier. Which weapons and which secondary gadget they are carrying at this point is also a total unknown. And you might say, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? How hard is it to look at the UI? And the answer, unfortunately, is harder than you think. Battlefield 2042 places a premium on keeping things kind of slick and unobtrusive. The overall UI is actually much better, in my opinion, than Battlefield 5, and they made a lot of improvements. However, with the additional weight placed on the UI for information, it buckles under the pressure of basically being the only reference point for teams. To illustrate this, I'm going to show you a clip, and you tell me whether or not the soldier here is a friend or foe. If you guessed it's a friendly player, you are correct. If you thought it was a foe, I'm sure you're not alone. Either way, while you were looking for the dot or checking the minimap for information that should be blatantly obvious, you just got shot by an actual enemy while you tried to figure it out. Part of this is due to the way that Battlefield 2042's UI is designed. Directly aiming at a player will reveal their name. If you're not looking at them directly, the text is hidden and replaced with this small, simple little dot, which unfortunately easily blends into the sky. Additionally, the name won't show up if the movement over the character is too fast. While this isn't new to Battlefield, the name tags were far more persistent in Battlefield 5, and the dots much larger as they contained important information like which class the character was. You of course also had the benefit of the uniform for a much easier reference, at least determining which side was which. In Battlefield 2042, the current system is not enough. And again, I'm not really criticizing the UI here, but rather the decision not to create visually distinct teams. I understand that DICE wants to use the specialist system. Again, I don't even have a problem with that, but it is incredibly confusing when there are 128 players on a map and only 10 different specialists. You often see players murdering themselves, which, in addition to being confusing, also looks sort of ridiculous. Developers have said that there will be plenty of customization options for your characters in the full game, but that doesn't solve the issue of team identification, and it actually further complicates things by diluting our ability to recognize specialists. Even some small changes could drastically improve a player's ability to differentiate friend from foe. Let's say you don't want to have faction-specific uniforms. Consider adding other ways to distinguish, like changing the colored lights that appear on characters. Ideally, do that and change, uniform colors or camouflage patterns. If DICE really wants to stick with what would be realistic in a conflict with fallen nations, add some armbands instead. This is a method that has been used for decades to identify combatants when uniforms aren't available. Unfortunately, as it stands with what exists in Battlefield 2042, it's unacceptable and it should have been addressed long ago. Battlefield is a massive team-based FPS. It is not a UI reading simulator. The fact that I have to rely on the minimap or the dot above a player to even determine if someone is friendly or not is just an incredibly poor design decision. It's tedious, it pulls you out of combat, it raises the level of frustration for players, and it makes it less accessible to players who might be interested in Battlefield. We also have to talk about accessibility for colorblind players, and while you can tweak the UI colors, many players with color deficiencies focus more on the overt appearance of the enemy instead, so the general outline of the soldier. There's little doubt in my mind that EA and DICE went with the specialist system as a way to sell cosmetics and maximize profit potential. They are a business after all, and the perceived value of a skin goes up if you can use it whenever you want, right? And honestly, I'm fine with developers making some money from cosmetics. Battlefield 2042 will include a ton of free content for players, including maps, etc. But this should not come at the detriment of the core gameplay, and I cannot stress that enough. Battlefield 2042 is effectively a team-based shooter without teams. The current system needs an overhaul, and this is not a conversation we should be having a month before launch. I think it is worth noting here that other games are also taking this approach this year, right? We've got Call of Duty Vanguard, which that's an equally bad idea. But I will tell you, I'm not the only one struggling to understand this direction. I've spent a lot of time recently in drones on the Battlefield 2042 beta, and it is clear from watching players from the air that they are struggling to identify friend from foe. I see them running next to each other all of the time, apparently oblivious that they are adversaries. But I'm curious how you feel about this issue. If you've gotten your hands on the beta, make sure to tell me your thoughts down below in the comments. But I would be really remiss if I did not bring this up. I feel like it's not a good direction for Battlefield to go. I think we should be really trying to strengthen the appearance of teams, classes, etc., so players can have a better handle on what's going on in game. I think that's incredibly important, as player count basically doubled on the next-gen system, so this is quite a hot issue here. But if you feel the same way, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, if not a dislike. Make sure to tap the bell and subscribe. If you want to help out the channel, make sure you check out Gamer Advantage. Those are the glasses that I use. Got that sweet blue light blocking technology built into them, and you can save 10% using the code FLAK. That'll get you a percentage off, and it'll also help support the channel. So, as always, thank you guys for watching.